what I want it to be. But like I'm afraid of that, right? Like that's something that's like heart pounding instantly when I hear something, see something. Like I just got comfortable with watching movies with snakes in it. Like Harry Potter, the first one, I had to skip half the movie. Like I'm not watching it. That's ridiculous. Yeah, I'm a baby, all right, but like that's legit. And what's crazy when you start like diving into the Bible and you realize that like God shows up and turns our fear into courage so much if we just let Him. Like if we just let Him have our lives and let Him control what He needs to control, our fear is gone. Our anxiety is gone. And that's the typical church answer, right? Just give it to God. What does that mean to you? If I say, hey, just give it to God, what does that like thought process go in your life? This is where you can give me feedback. This is what I want. So what does your brain go to when I say, hey, just give it to God? Pray. What ifs? Okay? Anything else? Absolutely nothing, maybe because you're just so zoned in with God that you're like, it's already up there. Like, we're good. Or maybe you're like, that's dumb. Why would I do that? Why would I give it to God when I'm here in the flesh and I can try to fix it myself? Or why do I give it to God? Why? Can you give me a reason? Because I tried before and I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. Maybe that's you. When you think of, just give it to God. Well, we're going to look at a story, and if you have your Bibles today, it's going to be in Esther 7. Who's heard of Esther? Otherwise, go ahead. Pretty profound woman in the Bible there. But we're going to look at Esther. But before we jump in, I'd just love to pray for us and focus in on what God has in store for us. If that's all right with you guys. Dear God, I just thank you so much for these students. I thank you so much for the environment that we have to feel your presence together, to fellowship together, to have a time of solitude with you during worship today, and just hearing your voice through those songs. And God, we lift up the praise to you, but we also just come to you with a humble heart tonight. Work inside of us what you have in store for us. Don't leave any part of our souls unturned. Search for us tonight. We feel you. You're in this room. So you pray. Amen. So Esther here, and she was scared. Okay, we're going to take a look at a time where she was scared, where she was afraid of what could happen, and she became a queen of Persia, and she was just phenomenal when it came to knowing how to give things to God. That's why we're going to focus in on her today. We're going to focus in on how she literally could have died by talking to the king. Like that's the history behind it. Like she was going to die or could have died if she did bring this up to the king. She was struggling a lot. She didn't understand how her people were struggling still, and it was a difficult time for the people that she brought along that they were supposed to be saved from slavery. And at one point she went to the king and she's like you guys have a plan to kill me. Do you know this? But it took a lot of time for her to get there. Some studies show that she was shaking, thinking about even talking to the king. That's how scared she was to bring up something that was deep in her heart. Is that you today? Is there something deep inside of you that you've seen that you need courage from God to bring up, to change? It's so bad that when you're up at night at 3 a.m. because you click back in your brain because you woke up and you just can't get it off your head because you just don't know how to deal with it. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a friendship that's gone bad. Maybe it's your parents. Or maybe it's your mental state. You don't know who you are anymore. You don't know where you're going. You're terrified. Some of you seniors in the room. Your future. What tomorrow looks like. See, Esther, she could have been killed if she brought this up. there's probably a 99.9% chance that what you're going through will not get you killed if you actually speak on it. So we're going to look at Esther and how she went to the king and said these words and only got the courage because she went to God first. But we're going to look at what God gave her to say in Esther 7, 1 through 6. So at first we're going to jump into Esther 7, 3 through 6 to knock out most of it. So this man named Haman created this wonderful plot to have all of her people killed. And she ended up saying this. Queen Esther answered, "If I have found favor in your eyes, your majesty, and if the king is pleased, spare my life." She had to start out by, "Please spare my life. I have to talk to you." Like, she's nervous right here. Like, she's like, "I don't know if I should be doing this, but God told me to do this, and my people need me, and I'm the only one that saved my people last time, so God's going to put me again because I'm going to be a great leader. And God put me in this room for a reason." So here we go. "And spare my people. This is my desire. For my people and I have been sold to destruction, death, and extermination. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept silent. If I were to be a slave, this would have been better." Indeed, the trouble wouldn't be worth burdening the king. The king spoke up and asked Queen Esther, "Who is this, and where is this one who would devise such a scheme?" So the king didn't even know the scheme was going on. That's how blind he was. And Esther was there for a reason. God anointed her a queen for a reason. God put you in those seats for a reason. God is putting you through that struggle for a reason. And we go on and read. Esther answered, "The adversary and the enemy is the evil Haman." Haman stood terrified before the king and queen. I use the CSB for that because I was doing some other research and I just kind of followed in line with that. There's other versions that have different words, but they all mean the same. Esther took courage to speak up and to take a stand. She didn't know how it was going to go. She didn't know where she was going to end up. But she did it. She got that courage from God. See, God's power is undeniably the best power in this world, in this sphere, in your brain, whatever it may be. God is number one. So when you're dealing with being afraid, go to God. Because God can turn our fear into courage. He can give us the words to say in that conversation that you need to hear, that you need to speak on. He can give you courage to go sit next to that person that may need you, even when you don't know the words to say. What is God's power to you? Where have you seen God's power in your lives? Where? Have you seen it? Recently, we just saw it. Those of you that have been aware of what's going on in the Banta community, God's power showed up. Those girls are home. They shouldn't be. Gruesome surgery after surgery, but they're still alive because God's power. That night that we stood here and prayed over them and prayed over our futures as well. 2 days later, they were home. 5 days later, they were at a football game. God's power is huge. So what you feel is little in your life, imagine what God can do with it when you give it to Him. And when the darkness seeks in, you don't know where to go. Paul gave us some advice in 2 Corinthians. He says this, for God who said, let light shine out of darkness, has shown in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of God's glory in the face of Jesus Christ. Let light shine out of darkness. Give light to the what? Knowledge of God's glory in the face of Jesus Christ. So give it to God because He has all the knowledge that you don't even have. So why are we fighting with it? Why are we afraid with things if we don't just go to Him? He knows what we've been through. He knows what we're going through. He knows what we're going to go through 20 years from now. This next part of this verse, though, 2 Corinthians 4:10 is the huge part here. Go to that one. Is it? I can pull it up. There we go. This is huge. I want you to just write down this verse and just kind of soak in with me. We always carry the death of Jesus in our body, so that the life of Jesus may also be displayed in our body. Sit on that for a second. We always carry the death of Jesus in our body, so that the life of Jesus may also be displayed in our body. God is inside of you, He is working inside of you, and He's working around you. The light of the Lord is inside of you. And when you sit on Jesus' death, His life is displayed inside of you. So there's no reason to fear what is to come. See, Paul was going through a whole lot. Paul was pushing through, and he was writing to the town of Corinth to encourage them, like, it's dark right now. And you're scared. I'm scared. But God will do God things. His power will show up. One more verse I'd love to just sit on with you, and it's in Joshua 1:9. This one hit a little different. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. Wherever you go. I've told many stories about my past and how I've struggled with mental health and things of that nature multiple times. And I think this would have encouraged me big time back then. But on another note, if I'm real with you, I'm scared right now. I was scared the other day. I'm afraid to what's to come. See, I love podcasts, and I can't even remember what podcast I was listening to. And this pastor, he said, when you're gifted something, you get to bring it to God at the end of the day. And you get to bring it and say, hey, you gave this to me. This is my gift. And to you I give it back. And He gets to judge what you did with that gift. That's terrifying. I have 2 kids. Those are my gifts. I sat right there and I thought, am I doing good enough? Am I raising these kids the way they should be? And then I sat there and I said, I don't just have 2 kids. I have all of you. And that was even worse. Am I doing good enough? Are they hearing God through the messages? Am I showing the light where I'm going everywhere? Am I truly being someone walking in Jesus' footsteps? It's terrifying. But I do know that when I sat back and thought about all of you, and I thought about my family and where we're headed, and I noticed that God put me here for a reason, and He put all of you here for a reason in this season, and that when you're scared, some of you are scared right now, and you just don't want to admit it, on what's to come in your life, or what that test is going to look like tomorrow, because you've got this study and it's already 6:48 on a Sunday. I'm kidding. I know. It was a best example because you have a 4.0. That's why I threw it out there. He doesn't stress about anything. You should wear the Texas shirt, all right? I had to throw you out there. Go blue. I knew you were going to wear it today, too. And then that also helped me, too. Maverick got a lovely text on Friday of just a Michigan gif of this dude just waving a flag and having a good time and dancing. And Saturday about 4:30, I get about 10 text messages from Maverick of all Texas things. And I just realized that, like, when I'm scared about how well I'm doing, God always shows up. Whether it be silly Maverick joking with me, or you guys here tonight having a good time and being able to sit a little different, some complaining, some like, what the heck is going on? But then when it actually hits a little bit with worship, sitting down, and it just, God fills the room, and all these things happen, and I'm like, man, why didn't I just face my fears with faith? Because when I do that, I see happiness, I see joy, the anxiety is lifted. So for you, for these 3 things I'm going to give you to just face your fears, is these 3 things right here. Face your fears with faith. Number 1, face them with your faith. Put it up to God. Truly and generously, put your faith into what God has given you. You're not going through anything alone. You're not going through it without a purpose. Face your fears with your faith. 2nd, trust in God's power. Trust in it. We see Paul experience that when he wrote to the Corinthians, hey, like, the light of Jesus is here in the darkness, because when you focus on the death of Jesus, His life shows up in you. That is power. And lean on God's promises. He promised to come back. He promised you a new life, a second chance. Lean on that. When you feel scared, when you feel like you don't know where to go, you don't know what's going on, God can turn our fear into courage. And maybe that's you today. Maybe you don't know what's going on in your life. And I want to take a moment here. And I do this a decent amount. I haven't done it in a while. But I want you to close your eyes. Don't look at anything else. Don't get distracted by anyone by you. This might be uncomfortable for some of you. But close your eyes. And I'm going to ask you this question. What is your Esther story? Think on it. Where in your life do you need courage? Where in your life do you need to speak up? Maybe it's speaking up to yourself. Maybe it's you jumping into a relationship with Jesus, and that is the start of your story. And maybe, just maybe, your story with Esther is you're going to kick that fear down, and you're going to run, and you're going to start fresh, start new, with courage filling your heart and soul because you are leaning on God's promises. You're trusting in God's power. And you are going to face all of your fears with that faith. If one of those hits you, I want you to just remember that. When you're thinking, I can't do this. I'm scared of the outcome. Think of Esther. She could have died. But she spoke up. God gave her the courage to speak up. And the world was changed. So where in your world can you speak up? Can you make a change? And if that's putting your faith into Jesus, and here in a few moments, I just encourage you to do that, to jump into a relationship with Jesus, to start your Esther story. To lean on Him, to lean on everything He's going to do for you. Because this world is broken and you can't do it alone. If that's you with all your heads bowed, every eye closed still, go ahead and make these words your own. Because it's not about the words you say, it's about the heart posture that you come to Jesus and let Him inside of your life.